Alright. Microphone's work. Yeah, okay, yeah, it is. Okay, good. Alright. So, is there anything specific you wanted to ask, or do you want me just to explain the whole situation that happened? Alright, I suppose I'll start all the way from the start with the Nova incident. Well, so this started like about a year ago. I just joined at the time. I wasn't really doing anything. I was just sort of there at the moment. But eventually, like all this shit started happening because like someone made a video on her. I know the dude that made it now. His name is Executioner Smo, and he made a video sort of calling her out, saying she was obsessed and all that sort of thing, which is obviously true now, in case you couldn't gather. But at the time when we saw this, she ended up like overreacting like hell, and she was like saying all these things like, "Oh, I'm gonna kill myself because of this, and this, that, and that, and all that." And that was the first sign to me that like something was kind of wrong because you're either really really sensitive or or you're faking it when you have a reaction to something as minor as that, with like threatening to kill yourself and that sort of thing. So that was sort of my first inkling that something was wrong. I kind of knew she was faking it, but at the time I didn't really think anything of it, and I just sort of brushed past it, which out of hindsight I should have clung on to. But oh well, what can you do? And then a little like time passes, and I started getting like a bit closer with her, and me and her end up being like actual like pretty decent friends. And we're starting around more and more, and I'm noticing that like she overreacts to drama quite a lot. Like even if it's something minor, like there was an incident where like she said something about oh marrying this fictional character, and then someone called her obsessive on Twitter, which was me on an alternate account. Because oh, admittedly, I did that to test her to test something. But the second I called her that, she immediately privated her account and started ranting about it privately. And I was just like, "Woman, why is that your reaction?" Oh yeah, that was it. The fucking. I want to prepare yourself for this part. Then you might have to censor a lot of this for YouTube. But she was really sexual around me and others, like really sexual. So there was an event where she kept calling me like daddy, like in public calls and all that sort of thing. Like I'd be casually chilling there, and then she just like moaning my name and things like that, which was I wasn't exactly the most comfortable with it, but I just thought it was playing around, so I just sort of went, well, she's just taking the piss, so I was going along with it. Yeah, she kept doing that like constantly. Anytime there was an area and there were no kids around or anything like that, she would immediately go, "Oh yeah, well no, it's that time. Hey, iron, blah blah blah." I'm not gonna give an example because that's gonna make my fucking spine curl. Gonna make me cringe my ass off. But yeah, she was like that, and she'd how do I put this? She basically tried to like say and show things that would make me cum my own pants, which obviously never happens. She's about as attractive to me as a wank with sandpaper gloves. But sorry about adding that last part. I just gave you more work to censor there, but oh well, it's there now. And then there was apparently like related to the whole Smo video thing again. There was apparently an allegation I had allegedly like killed myself and all that sort of thing. When obviously I haven't because I'm talking to you right now. But she was saying like, "Oh, I'm so sorry," and all that sort of thing. And I'm looking back and I'm like thinking like, where the hell did Smo get that from? Because I told him jack shit about all this sort of thing. I contacted him for a little bit, but all I did was call him like a dick and all that sort of thing. And then it kind of like dawned on me that she probably said that to him to like either get him to piss off or propel drama. And then a little while later, I checked the server. She made this whole announcement saying that I'm dead and all that sort of thing, and everyone's panicking and crying, and there's like all these people paying condolences, even though I'm completely fine. And I was asleep at the time when this was happening, so I couldn't have really done anything. When I woke up, I immediately got back on and said, like, "Yo, fellas, what the fuck's happening?" And everything's kind of returned to normal for the moment. Everyone was like, "Oh yeah, he's fine. Everything's grand," and blah blah blah. We laughed about it for a while, and then sort of just moved on from there. And she just called it like like fucked up situation, that sort of thing. And there was also an incident where she tried to dox the person that made the video, which, if you ask me, was a bit fucking over the top. No, she wasn't gonna like. She said she wasn't gonna post it publicly, but she kept saying something about like, "Oh yeah, I have a friend who's good with computers, and he's gonna find out their location or that sort of thing." And now I know who this person was. His name was Kickins, and he was lying about this at the time to make her feel more comfortable. But the fact that she was willing to do it does kind of speak volumes. So that's to remember, this wasn't even anything that bad. This was this was like just your standard video, just saying like, "Oh yeah, she's obsessed with that sort of thing," and she starts reacting with all this, that, and that. It was really over the top. There was also another thing with a dude called Nate, but I'm not going to get into him because he's my issue, and if I bring him up, he's going to start fucking annoying me again. So I'll just say there was an incident with him where he was being a bit annoying. There was nothing really that noteworthy to mention, other than the fact he was there and he was being annoying. He snuck into one of the servers for a little bit, and then she kicked him out, which I'm kind of grateful for. But you'll see why I'm not going to hold too much gratefulness later on. Yeah, there was also, back on the topic of sexual things. There was a lot of like weird shit she did with other people as well. Like she had one of her like just regular friends import a bunch of like inappropriate models and porn and things like that for them and help them format it or whatever. I don't know exactly what happened, but what makes this especially weird is that she was giving him all these pictures of war and porn and things like that. This guy's underage. This is the same person, Kickins, and he's not even 18. And she was sending him all of this, and like he was underage at the time. Is when I questioned her about it, she was just saying, "Oh, I don't remember doing that." Which obviously is a lie. She obviously does remember doing it. She just doesn't have an excuse. There was also a time. Obviously you definitely know about this, but I also sent her like £75 because she claimed she was in an abusive household, and she like, oh, she couldn't get any food because she couldn't apply for jobs and things like that. So I was just like, all right, well, she's in this bad condition. I'll send her some money so she can buy food. And she's lying out of her ass. She has more than enough money. One of her friends literally sent her like 10,000 quid, which was like more than enough to get out of that situation she was in. And yet she stayed in it. As I said, she's still allegedly in that abusive household today, which which are quote marks on the abusive part. And I doubt it is. I've checked out the Facebook accounts of her parents, and they seem relatively normal. But it's what's the strange part to me is that why is she even claiming the whole abuse part? She could have just said like, "Oh yeah, like the whole job thing. I can't get jobs and blah blah blah." But like then she adds that in to try and propel it even further. All it did was just allow us to figure out that it was false quicker. And another thing is that like the conditions she's making up doesn't make sense. Like she says like, "Oh, it's difficult to get a job when you have autism and ADHD." It's like, woman, I have psychosis and I have a job. Which leads me on to the next thing. She fakes a lot of mental disorders, and I mean like a lot. It's like she pretended to have BPD because one of her friends claimed they had it, and then she also, shortly after getting rid of me, claimed that she had psychosis, which I actually have myself, apparently. And she ended up saying that literally the second she kicked me out. Like she put it on her profile literally the minute I was gone. which I can confirm. No, she does not have psychosis. She's bullshitting there. I know she is. And then there's the whole DID thing, which is a giant rabbit hole in itself. Like she was basically using her allegedly having DID as an excuse to basically role play in really bad ways. Because she had this like fake personality called Rigger, who was apparently like, oh yes, I'm going to kill the host of his body and do all these horrible things and blah blah blah. And she'd basically try and make do this as a role play, except getting genuine reactions from like genuinely panicked and stressed people. That whole server wasn't like a place for friends to hang out and greet to her. It was a fucking breeding ground for panic, fear, and hate that she could use to play with like fucking tearing. It's like the amount of shit that went down in that server was not normal. Like the worst things that go on in most servers I've been in is just like, oh, someone gets this bullshit accusation made and we just all ignore it or something like that. With that, she had people like paedophiles in her community and her trying to manipulate other people into giving her money and pretending to commit suicide and being on the urge of suicide and blah blah blah. There's a lot of like, and I mean a lot of like incidents where she allegedly came close to killing herself. Like there's a whole incident where she claimed she sat outside for ages and like it was in the middle of the freezing cold and she could have died from hypothermia. There was another incident where she claimed she was going to drink a fuck ton of really strong like alcohol and they were hoping that poisoning would kill her. And then there was also an incident where she apparently took a knife to herself, which I looked closer at. The picture she took of her cutting herself is not true at all. She, how do I say this without sounding disgusting? The picture is fake because I had my girlfriend look at it and she said it looks more like period blood. And I looked at it myself and sort of realized she's bleeding from areas that aren't even bleeding. It's like there's literally a blatant like thumb smudge. Yeah, it was inaccurate because as I said, she was bleeding from areas that weren't bleeding. You could literally see like a fucking smudge on her hand from where she like rubbed it on from napkin or tissue. No, I don't even think it was a napkin or a tissue. I think she just like used a tampon and just pressed it against her skin. I know that sounds disgusting, but that's just genuinely what I think she did. But yeah, she did that obviously as blatant attention manipulation, and I'd like to remind you, she did all of this while she knew that half the people that were following her and in her little sub community were underage. Like more than half of her community were, well, more than half of them were like little kids and all that sort of shit. It it was just like confusing to me, if I'm honest, more than anything. Because, like, first of all, I'm gonna be honest with you. The second I met her, I immediately knew right off the bat there was something wrong with her. But I couldn't really say anything because it was just premonition. There was nothing I could have really said. If I had like said anything to anyone saying like, "Hey, no, she doesn't feel right," then they would have just like said, "Oh, I was taking the piss out of her" or something like that. But as I said, I knew something was wrong because she just never acted correctly. She always acted like overly attached to fictional characters like Serial Designation N. In fact, she tried to arrange like a fake virtual marriage to the character so she could claim she was married to a fictional character and she took it 100% seriously and claimed she was actually married to him. It's like, woman, he's a fictional character. He doesn't exist. And if he did exist, he sure as hell wouldn't want to date you. Oh, yeah, she definitely had a necrophilia fetish. Definitely. It's like clear as day. She wasn't even trying to hide it. And there was also the blatant zoophilia fetish, which she tried to loophole. Oh yeah, prepare yourself because she had a lot of really fucked up fetishes. That said, she was blatantly like on the verge, or not even on the verge, pretty much a zoophile, and she kept making all these like excuses like, oh no, dragons weren't real, so that makes it okay, and dinosaurs were extinct and all that sort of thing. which is he's going from Miles, which yeah, yeah. But yeah, she kept trying to loophole it. Like the main character of the whole was it dying in? No, existential exploration. The main character in that one, Primal Variant N, was was blatantly like a fucking dog with wings at the point it was at, because it was like this whole kind of dragon, kind of dog looking thing on all fours, and she tried to loophole it being Anthro and all that sort of thing by saying it could speak English. Woman, it couldn't even stand. It was on all four legs. Yeah. As you said, he acted animalistic and spoke a broken English. As I said, she was just trying to loophole it just barely enough so that she didn't get caught out for it. And I don't know if you can really include this in the video, but if you can, see if you get away with it. She she specified in her fucking car star version of the bot, which was the basically character AI but for porn. She specified in that version that Primal Variant N had a knot, which, in case you don't know, is basically the dicks that an animal would have. And now I know that some furry artists have done that sort of thing as well, but the fact that it had an animal penis, in addition to standing on all fours, barely being able to speak English, animalistic personality, the whole fucking snoot on him, it it doesn't add up very well, to put it simply. I would read out all the shit that was in the description for the Carstar bot, but first of all, I think she blocked me on there. And second of all, I don't think you'll be able to include any of it in your video. You'll probably have to censor nearly every single word I say. But yeah, with the necrophilia thing, I'll just put it simply. There was a lot of art she had commissioned and even made herself that was literally just straight up fucking corpses. And I mean, like, literally just straight up. Like, I mean, there was one image that she even sent me where she was like, her, her, not even her, I see actually, herself, art of her getting her arm broken and fucked at the same time. It was quite a morbidly detailed as well, and she had done this sort of thing multiple times. I've seen a varying amount of this art. I haven't got any of it archived because I really don't want to look at that more than I have to. But there is still one of those images in one of the DMs with her. But yeah, the zoophilia and necrophilia fetish that she had wasn't even really like she wasn't even hiding it at that point. It was blatantly out in the open, loud and proud. Oh, oh yeah, that was another thing. There was also an incident with me because I was talking to her about an OC I had of mine from a life related to murder drones who was named Rustwall. Now, Rustwall's whole thing was that he was basically a robot version of the Dredge from Dead by Daylight in a way. That isn't really it. There's a lot more to him than that, but if I was to explain the whole details of him, we'd be here for quite a while. But yeah, Rustwall's whole thing is that he was made out of several murder drone corpses and worker drone corpses and that sort of thing. It was basically a walking like mass of dead bodies. And I said myself, as his creator, anything I say goes for him. I say myself, he is officially dead. He isn't a zombie or anything like that. His soul is just basically out of body experience, puppeteering his body, trying to keep it going. He's dead. And there was a whole thing that she said where she was thinking about making an official ship between Rustwall and her Ozzy. And she was trying to push for like an official ship between those two. I kind of shot it down and said like, yeah, no, probably not going to happen because it's kind of weird. And I recall there being a bit of an argument about it as well because she was saying something like, "Oh no, if you were to fuck Rustwall, it wouldn't be necrophilia," and I was saying like, well, yeah, but he's dead. He's made up of dead corpses. And she was like, well, no, he's still technically alive, so it's not necrophilia. He's still going. He's still moving, and that sort of thing. And I was just like, well, yes, but even if he was still alive, he's made up of corpses, some of which aren't even moving. He is dead. All the things in him are dead. It is necrophilia. And then she started like trying to like guilt trip me and all that shit by saying things like, "Oh, let's just drop this. I'm getting." I don't remember what the word was, but it was something like, "Hang on, what was I choose now?" Extra reason for this. Oh yeah, and what I don't get about it is that like she was daring to correct me on my character. It's like, motherfucker, I made him. Anything I says goes for him. So if I say something's the case with Russell, it is. That's my character. I said that if you were to have sex with him, it would be necrophilia. It is necrophilia. And another thing is, he didn't even have a penis. Like, he doesn't have any sexual organs or anything like that. So even if she wanted to, she physically couldn't. And I just don't understand what she really saw in it, because Russell didn't even have, like, a face. He just had a giant bleeding hole. I don't exactly have any designs for him. All I have is a description and a fucking character AI bot. But as I said, the whole thing with him is that he's a walking giant mass of corpses. And she kept trying to loophole it, saying things like, "Oh no, he's all right. He's still going. Blah blah. It's not necrophilia because he's technically alive." And she kept trying to just like correct me on my own character. It's like, woman, it's my character. Whatever I say from goes. And it was also a nice, lovely bang with a line that she said. You, you might want to prepare yourself when you hear this, because this is a fucking mind opener. I told her that Russell didn't have any sex organs or a penis or anything like that. And she responded by saying, you know, it's a different thing when I say this out loud. She responded by saying, well, where he can just find a dead horse or something and graft its cock on. Because the whole thing with Russell was that he's grafting various limbs onto himself. So obviously she suggested a fucking dick to be grafted on. But she tried to specify horse. Zoophilia and necrophilia in one there. Yeah, there isn't any saving her. She's like beyond it. And Nova, if you're watching this video and you're gonna try and say, "Oh, that didn't happen" or something like that, don't fucking lie. It's one of the most like disgusting things you've ever said, so I know you'd remember saying it. I'm saying this because I told other people about it and she denied it almost immediately. She tried to shoot it down in flames, saying I was lying. Although let's be real, she's in no position to be believed. But yeah, moving on to another incident is because this isn't a sexual one now. We're kind of moving past that 'cause you've heard more than enough. There was a incident with a dude who made a video talking about Nova, known as Frederick. If you were involved in the Nova incident, you know who Frederick is. But for a basic rundown, he made a video like talking about Nova and detailing all the bad shit about her. And at the end, he said her real name, which I will say, but you might censor it in the video if you want to. Her name is Sabrina, and he said that during the video, and she was immediately like panicked about all this sort of thing and going, "Oh god, I'm so stressed. Oh, this, that, and that." And then she started going on a tirade and saying all these things online. And then she started trying to make people in a server panic. Hang on a second. Back. What was I talking about again? Oh yeah, the whole Frederick thing. Um, yeah, she started like saying all these things online, like saying like, oh, she was going to cut herself and kill herself, and she had attempted suicides and things like that. And me myself, because this was at a point where I like genuinely cared about her. She was one of my closest friends at the time, and I was stressed as fuck thinking about this. And it really didn't help that she got her boyfriend at the time to accuse me of being Frederick, because there was an inconsistency going on where he talks a bit of shit about me as well and blah blah blah. It was just coincidence. There was nothing really more to it. But She still made the accusation, and when I tried to prove my innocence, she fucking shut me right up. The only reason I managed to prove my innocence to her in the end was because one of my friends that was still in a Discord server managed to slide the video of me talking about the whole situation and proving my innocence to her. Hindsight, I really shouldn't have bothered. I really should have just let that accusation slide and gone on with my life. But yeah, I tried like proving throughout the whole situation that I wasn't Frederick and all that sort of thing, and it put me under immeasurable amounts of stress. And it didn't help that Nova was claiming she was doing all these bad things like cutting herself and attempted suicides and things like that. And she claimed she had 2 attempts, which was poisoning and stabbing herself with a karambit. Which, as said, not true. We've been over the blood thing already. And she also created a fake account she pretended to be someone else in, which went under the name, what was it, Necro? Something like that. Yeah, she claimed to be a friend of hers, and then she started saying all these things like, "Oh, Nova's killing yourself. Oh God, isn't this so bad? Oh," and she did this to directly like guilt trip me and make me panic and things like that. And eventually, the stress actually got to such an overwhelming amount. This is kind of personal, but I'm going to lay it anyways. It got to such an overwhelming amount. I actually tried to do an actual attempt of taking my own life, like a fully serious one at that. I tried to poison myself. I'm not going to go too into detail on it, but I tried it on myself, and I luckily I survived. And there was a whole recovery server for it, talking about like the whole situation and how I was doing in hospital and things like that. And I recovered. Obviously, there was no lasting effects, which I got very lucky for. But one of the permanent effects that occurred from all of the stress, even before I landed myself in the hospital, was the bulimia from the stress she caused from the accusation. I was so stressed out and panicky that I physically couldn't eat. Any time I did, I just vomited it back up. And eventually, my body got to a point where it started getting used to me eating the bare minimum. And when I tried eating anything like filling again, I would just end up throwing it back up. It would just go straight out of my body again. So I'd have to eat the bare minimum just to get by, because otherwise, if I eat anything more, it's going back up. And I'm still suffering from this today. It's taken a giant toll on my body. It's like I used to just barely be overweight, and now I'm at the point where you can literally see my skeleton through my own body. And as said, like that's the main reason why I fucking loathe Nova now. She pretended to be my friend and all this shit, but in reality, she wasn't only using me, but she caused literally the worst year of my entire life. She pretended to cover it up with all these good little happy moments and blah blah blah. But in reality, it was a fucking charade. This wasn't a circus. This was a fucking. This is just a chainsaw massacre, covered in fucking confetti to make it seem like it's a nice event. And bear in mind, to you, I'm not the only victim of this sort of shit. I mean, I don't know if anyone else has suffered through the whole thing as I have. I mean, her boyfriend's definitely had it rough, like definitely. Green, especially, if he's seen this, because like he went through hell with her. He did all these things for her, and all of this. They helped each other out so much, or more, he helped her out. And eventually, she just threw him to the dogs like he was nothing. Like he was discarded. She was just basically using him as a fucking puppet, which is the whole reason why he was used to accuse me, because she didn't want to make that accusation herself. So instead, she got her boyfriend to do it, which I immediately like sort of thought it was her. But when Green started talking to me, I was like, okay, never mind, it's him. And I still think it's really scummy to try to get her boyfriend to do it instead to cover herself. But yeah, after the whole Frederick shit eventually got solved, after God knows how fucking long, I eventually got back in contact and everything everything kind of went back to normal. It was relatively the same old, same old, same old, chilling about in a server, fucking about with my friends and blah blah. But the impact was obviously still there. It was still pretty fucking horrid. What else was there? Yeah, there was also another incident where one of her boyfriends, known as Red, caught on to the whole act that was going on and sort of figured out, yeah, no, she's faking all of this shit, including her mental conditions. And then she kind of panicked and started saying all these things like, oh, I'm having an identity crisis now, in order to get people to think that Red's a bad person or sort of thing. In reality, I was sort of more on Red's side more than anything because I knew it was fake myself. Because I mean, there's no one in the world that has DID that fucking specifies who's like in control and whatever by fucking using emojis and shit like that. Not to mention, DID doesn't even fucking work the way she thinks it does. Like, it was blatant she was lying. There was also a incident with the whole UTTP. There's nothing to really say there other than they just sort of gave him an excuse to act miserable. That's really it. And there was also some other incidents shortly following that where she pretended to like contact abusers and things like that. Which, looking back, I don't even think she had abusers. Like, I mean, there's proof of the whole alleged grooming one, which might be true, I suppose. And I don't remember the dude's name, but there was a chance she was groomed. I'll admit, but she's definitely making a lot of the rest of the stuff up. I mean, there was like one incident where she said that she was kidnapped, kept in the basement for like a week, and fed only dog food. Like, what the fuck are you talking about? If you're fed nothing but dog food, you'd be dead. And about a week in there, like, are you taking the piss? You trying to be funny or something? Police would have fucking gone mental over that sort of thing. Would have searched like every nook and cranny. Yeah. Which is another thing. She has a fucking like nutcase for calling the police. It's like, oh, you know her real name? Gotta call the police on you. Oh, you're looking at her Facebook account? Calling the police on you. In fact, I think she tried to call the police on me once. It's like, oh yes, that will work on me. Call the police on someone all the way in the United Kingdom. You moron. But yeah, shortly afterwards, like I gained a lot of her trust, and she started like claiming I was like her closest friend and things like that. In fact, she even like put me in a private DM between only like three odd people, which was just me and her other most trusted members. She knew she could trust more than anyone, which, as you know, was false hope when it came to me because I was backstabbing her the entire time. But yeah, as said, like actually, I should probably start at like the beginning of this sort of incident, shouldn't I? Yeah, there was a thing where I was kind of high at the time. Maybe censor that part. But yeah, there was a thing where I was under the influence and I was like talking and dicking about in just a server playing golf with the fellas and all that sort of things. And later on, there was a incident with a person called Mackie who had like a bit of drama surrounding them in the past, and Nova was a bit stressed about it, and I just said like, "Oh, if you want, you can just kick her out, and you can blame it on me," and she did it without hesitation. Now, I'm not going to blame her too much for that one because, in all honesty, I suggested that. I'm not going to frame it as something like, "Oh, and then she kicked her out and then blamed it on me." No, I suggested that. That was my fault. But like, it caused a lot of drama in the thing because everyone was saying that I was being like an immature mod, which, in all fairness, yeah. But that's because I was an idiot at the moment. As I said, under the influence. I was bound to be acting like a fool. But yeah, that one was more my fault, but it's kind of what kickstarted what would happen next. That she would basically write a cheese because there was a thing that she was doing where she claimed she had like moved into the fucking Kanito fandom, and then she had like saw this character which obviously called Kanito, and she was claiming like, oh, it's a new love, and she loves it and everything and whatever. And then there was an incident which one of her boyfriends, who was like pretending to be N on the side and all that sort of thing, had ditched her, and this pissed her off beyond measure. She was fucking furious about it, and I just saw it as overreacting and all that sort of thing. And she hosted like an entire group conversation in a server, like saying that she was like suicidal and announcing this shit like fucking loud and proud to like a server with like 24 people in it. And like the more I look back at it, the more I just realized she really was just farming for attention. She really was. Oh yeah, she definitely did that. Yeah, she basically just fed her fucking sadism by torturing that AI of N. That's that really goes well for her, doesn't it? It's like I will admit she most blatantly does have a couple of screws loose, but that still doesn't excuse the manipulation. But yeah, as I said, there were several instances where she like did this whole suicide thing, and that was the most recent one I can think of. And then she eventually like moved on to like mainly being a Kanito fan and blah blah blah. And she even requested porn to be made of Kanito, which yay, more zoophilia. Because Kanito is just a fucking axolotl head on legs. That's not even Anthra, it's just an axolotl severed head on two fucking legs. And she eventually like started like clearing out her friends list, saying like, oh, she didn't need them anymore and blah blah blah. And she also like ditched her boyfriend Green and Red and blah blah. I mean, she ditched Red a long time before this, but still, she ditched all of her boyfriends, and she claimed she had found true love in this fictional character, which I'll let you guess how well that went over. And Green was not very happy about it, and I can fully understand why. Because as she said like, "Oh yeah, found true love." It's like, woman, you were in a relationship with Green for like an entire year. Did that mean nothing? Yeah, I've seen that private account. Yeah. Speaking of which, there's also this whole thing going on. She's apparently transgender, and I'm me and others are 100% sure she's just doing this just for the sake of like kind of guilt tripping people in order to making people think like, oh, she's transgender, so we can't go after her. Although I hate to tell her, but this isn't a transgender issue. This isn't an issue with her gender. It's an issue with who she is as a person. Just her being her is an issue half the time. I don't care what gender she is. But yeah, with the whole fictional thing, I sort of like looked. I didn't really look into it at the time. I was taking sort of a neutral stance about it because, as I said, I still didn't realize that Nova was the fucking accusation. Was the one that made up the accusation about me being Frederick at the time. I still thought it was Green, so I just sort of went along with whatever was happening and sort of kept a even footing on everything. I didn't care about the people that were against her. I didn't care about the people that were with her. I was just sort of there for the ride. And then I ended up joining a server which at the time was themed entirely around like exposing Nova for being an arsehole. And I sort of looked at the evidence that was there for a brief moment, but didn't really look too much into it. It was like, well, there's nothing really backing this up at the time. And then she ended up taking a screenshot of a conversation we had together, which made her look good. And then she posted that onto her Twitter account in order to defend herself, which is not only a really fucking dickish thing to do without someone's permission, just screenshot part of their conversation and fucking post it. But in addition, like she basically tried to weaponize me. Then she was basically using me as a way of saying like, "Oh yeah, no, she's fine." It's like I didn't ask for that. You just straight up took that fucking screenshot of me saying something good about you and posted it. But yeah, after that, I looked back in the server after I rejoined it, the server against Nova, and I looked into all of the evidence that was there a bit more, and saw that not only was there a damning amount, but there was a damn good like bit to back this up. And I sort of like realized, oh yeah, Nova's definitely a really bad person. I pretended to be on her side for the moment and tried to catch what like defense she had for a lot of it. And I started like making up a bunch of bullshit saying, "Oh, all these people are messaging me and they're saying you're this and that. Can you explain some of this? Because they're saying a lot." And then her response to this was to tell me like an hour long story about like an hour long sob story about some made up shit she went through in her past, saying like, "Oh, I had this abusive thing and I saw my brother nearly kill himself and blah 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 and all that sort of thing." It's that woman. I asked for proof that you didn't do something. I didn't ask for your fucking backstory. You're not Batman. And by the time that call was like near its end, I was just like, I couldn't fucking be bothered. She didn't answer my question, but I'm not listening to that again. So I just sort of left. There's also some shit around that she's been doing, where she's been claiming that I'm like a murderer or something. She said it on her Ink Bunny account. I'll send you a screenshot of that later, or you can just put it off my Twitter account. But what confuses me is why she even said it. Because I don't know where she got the whole murderer thing from, and I'm not even sure where she came up with it. But that's like the most basic ass accusation you could say about someone. Just be like, oh, why is this person bad? Oh, they're a murderer. But yeah, back then instead of present. Is that afterwards she told me a whole fucking sob story. I was just like, oh yeah, I definitely believe you now. And in my head, I was just like, oh, that answered nothing. And hang on real quick, I'm gonna go through my old conversation first, see if I can fucking find anything noticeable. Oh yeah, that was it. There was the whole thing that was going on where her legacy was sort of going to ashes at the time because everyone was seeing her as this bad person. I was just like, nah. And then she also made a document trying to explain herself in where she just. I'm just gonna be honest. She said just a bunch of nonsense. Nothing really to say about it other than that it was a load of bullshit. So like, right out of the gate, she immediately came out with this whole thing saying like, "Oh, I'm like this, and I've got drama and all that sort of thing. So there's this happening." It's like, woman, you opened the gate with fucking guilt tripping. It's the equivalent of like if I was to like get caught out for I don't know theft or something like that, and I was to immediately say, "Oh, I'm sorry, but my dad just died yesterday." Anyway, about the theft, it's like, woman, those things had no correlation. But yeah, there was a lot of shit in that fucking explaining myself document, and as you saw, it's recently changed because of the fucking document that we made exposing her. I was gonna say that I made, but then I remembered I put almost no effort into it, and everyone else did the work for me. I mean, I did a bit of it, but not much. Yeah, that's what I was talking about. Like, it changes super random, and it's like, oh, what? Like, woman, stop trying to be fucking edgy. You're not all. But yeah, she also tried to move accounts because the drama that was going on there was getting quite overwhelming for her, and all the accusations were spreading and blah 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 blah. And she moved accounts in order try to get away from it all, which obviously didn't work in her favor. And I kept talking to her and like sort of farming information from her at the time. And she was saying like a lot of bad shit about her friends and all that sort of thing. Like people that genuinely cared about her at the time. She was calling them all stupid behind their backs and calling people morons and saying all this sort of like shit about people being stupid and people needing to leave her alone and whatever, blah blah blah. But yeah, she had a massive thing for like shit talking people behind their back. She even did it to me. Like there was a whole thing that went on. I'll give some context for this. There was a thing that was going on where she made me the priest of a virtual wedding between her and her boyfriend. And I'd warned them before the wedding that I was incredibly tired due to a sedative I took, meaning that chances are I'd pass out during the wedding. They still said that they were going to go along with it anyways, and I'd still be the priest and whatever. And despite these warnings, they still had me as their priest at the wedding. And when I gave the fucking like vows or read out the thing or whatever, at the end I passed out and everyone started laughing about it and it was funny. And I eventually woke up and we just moved on from there. Everyone was laughing about it and everyone was having a good time. I sort of made it more memorable. Mm. Yeah, she did do that a lot. Yeah, she basically had the members of her server fucking babysit her. She's a man child, to put it simply. But yeah, there was an back on topic for a minute. There was a whole thing about the wedding where like I passed out during it. Everyone laughed about it. Everyone was having a good time. It was just basically a little riot that we had. We were just taking a piss out of it. It became a meme in the server for a little while as well. And I thought she found it funny as well. But it turns out she actually hated me for it. Even though it was the only thing that made that wedding memorable. Because as said, like I passed out during it and everyone was laughing about it, everyone was having a good time. Secretly, she hated me for it and kind of held a grudge against me for it. And according to Kickins, she also called me a moron several times behind my back. And I actually heard her say this as well because I joined a voice call by accident once. Heard her say, "Oh yeah, I'm a moron," and then I very quickly left before she noticed. I don't think she ever knew that, but I heard it, so that's nice and lovely to hear. But yeah, near the end of the whole like double agenting thing, she, I ended up noticing she was like blatantly manipulating a friend who I'm going to call Sparty because that was what they were going by last time I checked. And to put it simply, Nova was basically trying to make Sparty into a little twisted version of her, and she ended up doing this by saying like, "Oh yeah, this AU's out now," and blah blah blah. And because Sparty was her biggest fan, she'd follow her like a blind sheep. And there was also this whole thing that Nova was doing at the time based around polyamory, and and how do I explain this? She didn't explain anything about polyamory to Sparty. She just said like, "Oh yeah, polyamory is a great thing," and then Sparty sort of jumped on it and started doing it herself. Unbeknownst to her, though, you're supposed to get the consent of your other partner at the time. to do it. Because she didn't tell her current boyfriend at the time about the whole polyamory thing whatsoever. She was basically just cucking him. And then a little while later on, it just turned on to full on cheating on him, which obviously he wasn't pleased about at all. And when the whole situation got started, she acted in the exact same way Nova did, like just sort of throwing her temper tantrums and storming off and all that sort of thing. And at the end of it, there was nothing really we could really do. To this day, there's nothing we can really do about it. She's still going off about it to this day. Sparty, if you see this, by the way, I wasn't trying to like annoy you or anything like that when I said what I said. I said what I said because it was true. Polyamory just doesn't work half the time. But yeah, I realized that like Sparty was like receiving a lot of like fucking manipulation and all that shit underneath Nova. So what I sort of did, and she's gonna fucking snap at me the second I say this, if she's even listening to this. But I made up a fake conversation between me and Sparty, painting her as a double agent, where I claim that Sparty was like spying on her and all that sort of thing to give information back to the others and help expose her and all that sort of thing. And I sent this fake conversation to Nova saying like, "Oh hey, look, Sparty's a double agent. She's backstabbing you." And Nova immediately believed it. Immediately. I don't even think she let Sparty explain herself before kicking her out. And then shortly afterwards, like the Sparty came to me saying like, "Oh yeah, she did this, she kicked me out and it's your fault." And I was just like, "Woman, this isn't even in our conversation. This is a conversation we had in our DMs by the looks of it. But that's not in our DM, is it?" And then she believed me and was just like, "Oh yeah, she lied to me. Wow, she's such an asshole." And I sort of made her see a bad side of Nova a little bit. And Nova talks a bit of shit about her as well, so that if Sparty was going to consider going back to her, she definitely can't now. Because truth be told, Nova did say a lot of bad shit about Sparty, like a lot, and yet Sparty still followed like a blind fucking sheep. But yeah, and because if Sparty again, if you're watching this, I did what I did because it was to fucking clear your head and protect you. You only realised she was bad when I fucking forced you to see it. And I know Nova's definitely going to throw a temper tantrum about hearing me pull that whole double agent shit out of my ass, but it was funny. It was not only fucking funny to see Nova immediately fucking turn up on the first thing I say about it, but in addition, it proves just how willing Nova is to throw away her closest friends. Because as I said, like, Sparty was not only one of her most trusted members, but she was her biggest fan. Sparty was like a loyal dog at that time, and the second I said something bad about Sparty, saying, like, "Oh yeah, she's probably a double agent," immediately kicks out. I mean, I had fake evidence to back it up, but still, Nova immediately did it. She didn't even let her explain herself. She immediately got fucking booted. And then shortly after that, there was a whole thing where like Nova said that she was like depressed again and going to kill herself and blah blah blah. I think I pretended to be asleep at that point because I not only knew she was faking it, but I knew she was like fucking lying out. I just wasn't in the mood for it, to be honest. I knew she was faking it, and I wasn't in the mood to talk about it. So I just pretended to be asleep, and I was just like, "Oh no, no, I'm sorry, I missed it. I was asleep and whatever." What else was there? Yeah. Yeah, sorry, I'm giving you a lot to edit on. By the way, chances are you have to cut a lot of this out because it's a long fucking conversation. This has been this call's nearly been an hour long. But yeah, there was also the whole clinging on to Kaneko thing she was doing in this entire process, where she was claiming she was full on in love with this fictional character and she was going to marry him and she had found true love in a fucking character that doesn't even fucking exist. But yeah, another thing is that because all the bullshit about her was starting to spread, all the bad stuff, she decided that like she couldn't make money off of the normal way she would, aka by leeching off of other people. So what she started doing instead was creating things like, not taking the piss by the way, she created an OnlyFans account, which I hate to inform her, but no one's gonna pay to see pictures of a fucking crusty ass body. To this day, she's probably still trying to desperately leech off her loyal friends for money. But yeah, she's got less source of income now, and she's basically paycheck to paycheck, scraping for dimes. Well, not even paycheck to paycheck. She doesn't even have a fucking job. Oh yeah, she doesn't have almost any friends at this point. To be honest, she's got like five of them, if that. Which is something funny to me, by the way. She literally had it all. She was famous in the community. She was well known. She had loyal friends, loyal fans. She basically had everything. She even had money coming in. And yet she lost it all, threw it all away because she seeked drama. And going into the final stages with with my contact with her, she eventually admitted when I sort of forced out the information from her, but she admitted to making the accusation about me being Frederick and all that sort of thing. And I was just like, all right, well, I want my money back now. Send it back to me. Then she said she would. She said she would give it to me once she had the money. And one day I said like, "Hey, so when you give my money back, I'm waiting." And then she claimed that she had sold her account without telling me, and blah blah blah. And she cut contact with me after that. Bear in mind, she didn't know I was a double agent at this point. She still thought I was her loyal friend and best companion or that sort of thing. And immediately, like literally immediately, the second I asked for my money back, she dropped me. She pretended, "Oh, I made another fake account. Oh, this isn't Nova. This is someone else." And then she immediately left her account. And then I tried to contact her on Facebook and things like that. She kept trying to ignore me, block me, blah blah blah. But I decided that like if she wanted to play child's games, then you play stupid games and you'll win a stupid prize. And that stupid prize was me arranging the giant ass fucking document that talked about Nova. Yeah, that was originally my suggestion to the fellas, and they started fucking working their ass off to make it. Like credit to them, they fucking worked their ass off. I put like 3 lines in it, and they went fucking overboard, included all those pages. And there was only like one way I can recall, like I was even able to contact her, which was through one of her friends telling me what was going on in the server and going on with Nova and all that sort of thing. And let's just say she wasn't exactly pleased about the document. What's funny as well is that she claimed to the people in her server that I was a manipulator and all that sort of thing. It's like, woman, if I'm guilty of all the things you say I am, if I'm guilty of all the shit she accused me of, that still makes her worse than me. Much worse. Even if I am a manipulator and all that sort of shit, at least I'm not as bad as she is. I didn't fucking rob people of their money. I didn't scam them. But yeah, this is just basically where we are now at this point. She's trying to hide around on various sites, mainly the zoophilic child porn site known as Ink Bunny. And she's still hanging around, doing shit, paying for commissions, blah, blah, blah. But there's only so many places she can go now, and there's only so many things she can do. But yeah, to put it simply, a legacies and ashes, and that document we posted. Oh boy, that pretty much destroyed any chance she had of having a following. There's only one other thing I can really remember that I could note, which was the uh, yeah, that was it. She tried like mass reporting me on several things. I know she definitely tried mass reporting me on Twitter because I kept getting like labels on my account saying that it was a temporary restriction, and I kept having to do Arcaros challenges to prove I wasn't an AI. So yeah, she was definitely spam reporting me, although I did a lot of fucking good. Still up to this day. She also like straight up admitted herself that she didn't think that anyone deserved an apology. So yeah, no, she has got another Twitter account up though right now. It's called that gay beer, and it goes by the plain name Rotten. And she's still trying to fucking farm for commissions. But yeah, there's only like she's just basically a rapper porn at this point. There's nothing she's really doing. And soon enough, she won't even be able to really rely on that because once this is published far and wide, there's nothing she can really do. I think that's roughly it. So, any questions? Yeah. Yeah, that